Welcome to Amis Leadership Compass, Episode 2. This week, my podcast of the week is A Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett featuring Jurgen Klopp. Shock horror, a Manchester United fan giving up 3 hours of his time to listen to an ex-Liverpool legend. But it was worth it, if I'm honest. This episode brought together two of my biggest passions, sport and leadership, and Jurgen did not let me down. Jurgen Klopp, for me, is the manager I love to hate. Hate's a strong word. I dislike him. Why? Because he brought the glory days back to Liverpool. And more importantly, actually, with the leadership lens, he left him in a much better place where success continued even after he walked away. But I do deeply admire him for what he created. And it's not something he's done for the first time. He's done it with previous clubs, so where he started in Mainz and in Dortmund, and obviously at Liverpool as well. Oh, I so wish he joined Manchester United. And what makes it even worse was there's an anecdote from Jurgen during this podcast where he said there was potentially an opportunity to join Manchester United, but the timing wasn't right. What a great story that would have been. Well, it wasn't meant to be. So this episode, whether you like football or not, is not really about football. It's about leadership and how Jurgen himself created belief, built cultures, and inspired people to perform beyond themselves. So what were the key leadership reflections for me that resonated during this episode? The first one was how Klopp thrived under pressure. It's always a privilege, not a burden. So what's the key leadership compass here? Pressure reveals who we are, not who we pretend to be. So in my own leadership journey, I've learned that pressure doesn't define you, it refines you. When stakes rise, your habits, not your hopes, carry you through. So lean in and let pressure sharpen your character. And be that tower of strength for your teams. That's so important. It's always easy to be there when the times are good. It's about being there when you're going through the troughs in that journey. The second leadership lesson I learned was about Klopp's ability to fail fast and learn faster. So Jurgen celebrated progress, not just perfection. He talked about a time when he lost his first Champions League final with Liverpool. That night he partied hard because it was about the journey more than the result in this instant. The leadership lesson here is that every defeat carries data and reflection turns failure into fuel. I've felt this personally. The toughest seasons have taught me the most. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the foundation of it. Great acronym that my son's school uses, FAIL stands for First Attempt Initial Learning. And there's so many great sportsmen and women that talk about how they learnt more from the points they've lost. The third lesson I picked up from this, and again, this is one that really resonates with me, is about character over talent. So Jurgen looks for players who want to work with him, not just those with flair. He demands everything. He demands effort, discipline, and commitment. But he balances it with belief, protection, and care. And the reality is you can't coach hunger. Return attitude, honesty will always outlast talent. And that's a constant reminder for me. Hire for attitude, nurture potential, and never compromise on values. If you do, it just doesn't work out. And I've had so many times where I've compromised in my early years and it just hasn't happened. As a famous saying goes, it's better to have a hole than an arsehole. Now, the fourth lesson I think I'd say that was key for me was that, and I think one that really stood out for me for a number of reasons, was about being consistent, which we know as leaders is very important, but also being flexible as well in terms of how to get the best out of people. So Jurgen always stayed true to his principles, but flexes his approach. He knew, for example, that a player from Germany needed a different kind of management than one from Senegal or Argentina. And he encouraged listening and inviting input. But once a decision was made, once he made that decision, the general consensus was that team moves on. Now, for those of you who have heard of Nigel Risner, one of his books, The Zookeeper Concept, is a great concept if you want to kind of understand kind of the different characters within your team. So Nigel brings everything down to 4 character types: a lion, elephant, dolphin, and monkey. And understanding your teams and which characters they form, and you're never really solely one, there's always a mixture of a couple of them, is that you can help bring the best out of your teams and how best to manage them, how best to talk to them, and so that you can work together towards that common. So the leadership compass here is that the goal is unity, not uniformity. So consistency of values, but flexibility of method. So great leaders encourage debate, then they create clarity. That's something that I've tried to live by. Create conditions where people feel comfortable to come and knock on the door and challenge me. So it's allowing a situation where people can thrive and not just comply. And if the answer is no, just discussing why it's a no, for example. One thing that came across from Jurgen was that he led with legacy, not ego. He built he built structure and teams for the long term, step by step. And as I said at the start of the podcast, he left something behind that kind of continued to grow without him. So leadership compass here is that real leaders don't need to tear down what works. Don't be that bull in the china shop. True impact is when success continues in your absence. That's the kind of legacy I hope to build, where trust, culture, and belief outlast the individual. And if I link that back to Sir Alex Ferguson, can't talk about a podcast about football and not refer back to the greatest of all time. Sir Alex's legacy was that he led through people. He mastered this. He understood the players. He always preferred players who had steady relationships, who had families, because he felt they'd be less likely to go out. But, he also made sure that every single player knew every single person on the team, be it the kit man, the woman in the canteen. The reality is that that's not going to be the difference between winning a Champions League or a championship. What it will do, though, is that it's about the values that brings and the man. There's a famous story that John F. Kennedy went to NASA Space Center, and he was talking to people. They came across a man, who was a cleaner, and he said to him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm helping to send a man to the moon." So that community, that team, common goal, that work ethic, that's what Alex Ferguson created, and that's what it's about, that everyone has their part. And if you look at comments that have been coming out of Manchester since the post-Sir Alex years, is that people feel undervalued, that there's no common camaraderie, there's no unity between the players and the back office staff. So my personal reflection and closing thoughts from this very long podcast, luckily you have not had to have listened to me for 3 hours, is that Jurgen really, I suppose, kind of demonstrated that leadership is both art and architecture. The art is about connecting with people, and the architecture is about building something that can stand without you. So how can I reflect that in my own journey? So I've learned that, in my own journey, I've learned that the greatest reward isn't recognition, it's seeing others grow, succeed, and carry forward the culture you help shape with them. There's no I in team. You need engagement from everyone. And again, just to summarize, I think true leaders really create belief, shape culture, and leave behind more than just success. They leave behind purpose, the why. That was episode 2 of Amit's Leadership Compass. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and check out the original podcast, the link of which is in the comments. Until the next time, look after yourself, keep learning, and let's keep growing together on this leadership journey.